Negative turnout is the only thing we have in the United States of America at this point, okay? It's the only way that people go out and vote. They're like, I fucking hate that other guy, so I'm going to go, fuck him, I'm going to go out and vote. However, in that situation, but let's get to the Trump endorsement of Jim Jordan. That's right. It's speaker alert. There is speaker drama happening inside of the Republican Party in the House of Representatives. Now that Kevin McCarthy has voluntarily stepped maybe possibly away from being a politician, but got owned by the Never-Kevers into losing his speakership role, there's drama in the House. In order for the House to conduct its businesses, as usual, they need to appoint a new speaker. Some of the top contenders for the role are Jim hate to prosecute or investigate sex crimes happening under my watchful eye, Jordan. Sex crimes that specifically happen in the gym, as a matter of fact. And Steve, I'm David Duke without the baggage, Scalise. That's right. Those are the two top contenders that are House of Representative members, okay, on the Republican side. And then last but not least, who could forget Donald motherfucking Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene, despite being a giant pussy, having sex with Kevin McCarthy, allegedly, and also voting not to vote out Kevin McCarthy, immediately turned around and wanted to suckle up to Donald Trump and put Donald Trump up for the speakership role. Donald Trump then turned around and said he might be teasing it. He might actually like it. He might enjoy being the speaker. I would certainly enjoy if Donald Trump became the speaker because that would be very funny and would make great content, and Donald Trump would fucking hate it. So I'm a fan of that decision. Anyway, but now Donald Trump is also, by the way, he will be going to D.C. next week, so that's going to be a fun opportunity for everybody. But he has endorsed Jimothy Jordan. So let's take a look at the updates from that.
President Trump throwing his, quote, complete and total support behind Jim Jordan, the Ohio Republican, to be the next Speaker of the House. He announced his big endorsement on social media.
Yeah, racist and sex offender, the two genders of the Republican Party, sometimes both.
Just after midnight, Trump himself said he had been toying with the idea of serving as Speaker temporarily, even though he's currently embroiled in a civil fraud trial and facing 4 different felony criminal cases. Trump was even considering a trip to Capitol Hill in the coming days, but we're told now he's not expected to go.
So what comes next on the heels of this? On Monday, the House GOP conference is set to meet as they, of course, scramble to pick a new leader. On Tuesday, they'll hear from candidates Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise in a closed-door forum. An internal election is expected Wednesday, and we could potentially see a House-wide vote for a new speaker that same day. The timing, though, could slip here if a candidate, depending on a candidate, can unify 217 Republicans.
And that is still a very open question. Whoever comes out on top will need to win over both moderates and hardline conservatives who just ousted Kevin McCarthy. Jim Jordan tells CNN he's the one who can do it.
How are you going to get?
Yeah, it's going to be Jim Jordan for sure. I think that Jim Jordan is crazy. He's like very... It's a race to the bottom at this point, but I do think that it's going to be Jim Jordan because the Republican Party is the Trump Party. And Jim Jordan is, I would say, even more pro-Trump than Steve Scalise, who is also incredibly pro-Trump. So, yeah. Republicans want to do sex crimes. Of course, they want Jim Jordan. Yeah. With Jim Jordan as speaker, Matt Gaetz can fucking, keep doing sex crimes. We all know Jim Jordan is not pro-Trump. Brother, Jim Jordan is like a January 6th co-conspirator. Jim Jordan also played a formative role. He loves Trump, but he's pro-Jim. I mean, it doesn't matter. All these guys are like that. Yeah, Liz Cheney legit said January 6th was Jim Jordan's fault. Like, I mean, yeah, fuck Liz Cheney. But, like, yeah, no, Jim Jordan is, like, he is top 5 dick rider in Congress. He's throating Trump. Like, He's throating Trump so hard, Marjorie Taylor Greene's like, let me get a piece of that. And Jim's like, no, dog, that's all mine. That's all me. Okay? He's blowing fucking bubbles on it. No, number one is not Lady G. It is Jim Jordan. Well, not, who would be number one? Who would be the number one dick rider? Because, like, Lady G has also criticized Trump, especially when he was besties with the now dead Maverick John McCain. So, Ted Cruz is not the number one dick rider either. Ted Cruz ran against Trump. You can't be his number one dick rider if you ran against him. Anyway, Jim Jordan is also, he played a formative role in the Tea Party caucus, Freedom Caucus. So, like, he has his, like, even, he was a Trumpian-style Republican even before Trump. So, for that reason, he already has the bona fides. You know what I mean? Who's Lady G? Lindsey Graham. No one wants to see an Ohioan man succeed? Yes. All right, let's continue.
Them in line if you were to become the speaker.
I mean, those I disagree with, you know, what took place, but those guys are friends of mine, and you know, I think that's the message I've been talking to my colleagues about is who can bring the 8 into the part of the team.
If we're talking about qualifications, it should be up to Steve Scalise. Like, Steve Scalise was whip for a very long time. He has been in a much higher position than Jim Jordan. So technically, off of seniority and experience, the smart pick would be Steve Scalise. But the smart pick is so stupid because we're talking about the Republican Party, which is why it will be Jimothy Jordan. Okay? Yeah, he got shot. He got shot in the ass for the party. He is he's seen as a hero. Steve Scalise is I mean, dude, think about it this way. Steve Scalise got shot in the ass, okay, at the congressional baseball game. Part of the reason why he got shot in the ass was the ease of access of weapons that he has diligently allowed to continue. And he literally turned around and voted for every single gun bill, regardless of getting shot in the ass. Okay? Think about that. That's like, I mean, that, like, he almost died. He had to shit and piss into a fucking bag for months. He almost lost his penis. And this motherfucker was like, nah, guns, everyone needs to have it. I love that. That's why they call him a fucking hero. Because he took a bullet in the ass for his principles.
Who can unite our team? I think I can do that. If I didn't think I could do that, I wouldn't run.
Let's bring in CNN national correspondent Kristen Holmes. Kristen, the kind of evolution of the former president on this endorsement was fascinating, given how he toyed with, I think he liked the public attention about being potentially speaker all week. How did this actually come to be?
Yeah, Phil and Erica, I mean, look, there's one thing that Donald Trump is, and it is the master of his own narrative. He likes the media attention. He likes the publicity. And he's also an agent of chaos. I was told that when he gave an interview to Fox yesterday, where he essentially said that he wanted to go to Capitol Hill and that he would be willing to serve as interim speaker, that many in his team didn't even know he was doing that. So, again, level of chaos here. And he doesn't even mention that he would have to actually be elected, which goes to show you the level of seriousness that he actually had. And we were told by members of his team that he was never really considering serving as interim speaker, but was really getting out there. Now, I was also told that some GOP lawmakers were starting to express concern about Trump's outward toying with this idea of serving as interim speaker, particularly that it might hurt Jim Jordan, who has been a close ally of Donald Trump's. So late last night, Trump did come out and endorse Jordan, saying he is strong on crime, borders, our military vets, and Second Amendment. Jim, his wife, Polly, and family are outstanding. He will be a great Speaker of the House.
If somehow Donald Trump had any fears that he could possibly lose the general, he would literally pull like a Hitler Chancellor moment. 100%. I saw that in the chat. and he would go for the speaker position. But right now, as it stands, polls are looking incredibly favorable for him. So he don't give a fuck about that.
And has my complete and total endorsement. But as you said, Phil, I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see how that endorsement plays out, particularly with moderates on the Hill. However, one thing that really complicates all of this, as you know, is the fact that he is leading by such a huge margin in the race, in the primary, to be the GOP nominee. So that's going to complicate things for those moderates who possibly don't want to get behind Jim Jordan, but also might not want to cross Donald Trump at this time.
Yes, a lot to consider there. Kristen, appreciate the reporting. Thank you. Joining us now to discuss, CNN political analyst Natasha Alford, the host of Early Start as well. Casey Hunt is with us as we look at where everything stands this morning.
Moderates on the Hill. They're all around us. Jim Jordan's a moderate. Guys, trust me. Jim Jordan, he's very different now. Even though he is leading the impeachment inquiry, the evidence-free impeachment inquiry into Joe Brandon and the Brandon crime family, he's actually moderate, I promise. He's reformed since the last committee hearing, which happened like last week. So, oh, Jesus Christ, dude. Oh, what a fucking clown show. It's awesome. It's awesome.
This reporting overnight, once we got this endorsement overnight, I think it begs the question.
I like the qualifying polls are looking favorable for him. Poll data seems so all over the place that I don't trust him anymore and have reverted to going off vibes. I mean, fair, but also, does your vibe say Trump is fucked? Or how are you, if you're, reading the fucking vibes out there, if you're, licking your thumb to see which direction the wind is blowing, like, don't the vibes kind of show you that it's like 50-50, maybe even more favorable to Trump? Because at this point, let me tell you something. Negative turnout is the only thing we have in the United States of America at this point, okay? It's the only way that people go out and vote. They're like, I fucking hate that other guy, so I'm going to go fuck him. I'm going to go out and vote. However, in that situation, the party, the side that has a more enthusiastic base of support will end up winning the election, especially given how the Electoral College is designed, that it's designed in a way where Brandon needs at least 5 points to comfortably win. Okay? Can't win by 1. He can't win by 2. He needs to win by 5 points. There is no enthusiastic support in the base for Joe Brandon. There is, however, very enthusiastic support in the base for Trump. Trump is removed from power, so he has only proximity to power. So he can't really be top of mind and like do things that are actively harming people. So then the negative voters are not going to go out and fucking vote against him as aggressively as they did last time around. And Joe Brandon does not have a singular person in the entire country that is enthusiastically interested in supporting him. 75% of the Democratic Party's voter base said they want a different candidate. They want a different candidate. You could put literally, instead of a president, you could put up a ballot measure of a faceless, lifeless Democrat at this point, and it would win by Reagan margins, okay? You could be like, we're no longer running a president. We're just running an idea. The idea is protect abortion and protect abortion, fix inflation, allow workers to have more rights. That idea is what we're running for. That's who we're fucking putting up there. Not a person. No face whatsoever. Just a fucking lifeless robot. And that idea, that platform, would literally win by Ronald Reagan margins. The Republican Party is historically unpopular across the board, especially at the national level, but even in fucking red states, okay? The only person who is incredibly unpopular is Joe Brandon. Because he's too fucking old. It's not even something he can change. Unless they give him like a new kind of steroids and Adderall cocktail that hasn't been tested on him yet. There is not really any way for him to change that attitude around. The polls are a lie. Okay, even if the polls are a lie, are you enthusiastic about voting for Jonathan Brandon? Joseph Robinette Brandon? Honestly. The vibes are so fucking bad. Yeah, there it is. Look. Joe Biden's disapproval ratings have only gone up and his approval ratings have gone down. That's the other part. So to the people who say polls are a lie, I hear you. I'm with you. Ask yourself, are you excited to vote for Joe Brandon? Do you meet a lot of people out there in the wild, in your immediate vicinity, that is excited to vote for Joe Brandon? Because I have yet to meet one. If we're looking at anecdotes, it's fucking vibes based. Vibes are looking bad, brother. They're looking bad. Yes, gay libs ride for him hard. I've yet to meet one. I don't know. I mean, I know a gay lib. He's very near and dear to my heart. He's very close to me. He ain't excited. He's more excited at the prospect of Michelle Obama running for president out of nowhere than he is about voting for Joe Brandon.
Casey, and we'll start with
I
you.
got a pee-pee. I'll be back.
How much will this move the needle?
I think it, excuse me, Erica, I think it moves the needle significantly. And here's why. There are a couple pieces here. The first one being that Donald Trump has incredible sway among the House Republican Conference. They listen very closely to what he says. He's got a lot of loyalists there, much more so than the Senate, although, that there are more Trump loyalists there now. When he was president, a single Trump tweet could send the House, spinning out, basically, and that reality still exists. He has, frankly, done more on that score to lock down support among the House GOP conference. So from this perspective, it says to me it's going to be much harder for a Steve Scalise to get to 218 votes needed to be Speaker, because a lot of those people are going to listen to Donald Trump and back Jim Jordan. Now, the second piece of this is those moderates that Kristen was talking about, and they are a very critical bloc, but there's a key difference between the moderates and the hardliners. The moderates think governing is important, and their interests are not around a prolonged vacancy here with the speakership. They've not been as willing, because they care about governance, to blow up everything in order to get what they want. And so I think it's much more likely that you see to figure out how to work with this than to openly revolt against it.
Yeah, Natasha, Casey hits at the key point. There are enough moderates or frontline Republicans to shift a dynamic in this race, to keep Jim Jordan from the requisite number of votes he needs, to keep anybody from those votes. That's been the case over the course of about a decade and a half in this Republican conference, and always.
Judy Cinderella, your haters are your closest allies. This guy is never in his chair, El Reactor. I had to go pee, okay, you fucking ass. It's good. Also, watch what you say about the only other person who you're going to be doing a podcast with this week, okay? Exactly. Half of the fucking staff is gone. That's right. It's going to be me and Cutie show this week for Fear and. We have to find a guest too. At least one guest. Can we have wine? What, you want to do wine about it and do girl talk? Maybe. I'm down. So 1 hour of you talking over Cutie? Yes. Dude, this is pretty funny. No one is excited about Biden, but voting against Trump is very strong. We'll have 4 more years of younger voters. I'm afraid to report something really scary for you about younger voters. Where's the study, chat? You know the one I'm talking about. I'd love to see Hasan's drunken girl talk. Hold on. Everybody fucking chill. Not polling is real. Dems overperformed 24 of the 30 special elections so far in 2023.
Good evening.
Yeah, I mean, this is a real indication. As Edgar Momentum would say, this is the best way to predict general elections specifically. But there is a dire warning. Guys, dire warning coming from me to your ears, from my mouth to your fucking ears. Something is happening among young voters in America, even if, to paraphrase the old Bob Dylan song, we don't know what it is. Consider youth turnout exploded during the 2018 midterm elections under President Donald Trump. Then in 2020, energized opposition to Trump among young voters was critical to his defeat. And in the 2022 midterms, surging youth participation helped fend off the widely predicted red wave. Even some Republicans fear that expanding youth populations in swing states pose a long-term threat to the GOP. New data supplied to me by the Harvard Youth Poll sheds light on the powerful undercurrents driving these developments. Young voters have shifted in a markedly progressive direction on multiple issues that are deeply important to them: climate change, gun violence, economic inequality, and LGBTQ rights. John Della Volpe, director of the poll, refers to those issues as the Big Four. They all speak to the sense of precarity that young voters feel about their physical safety, their economic future, their basic rights, and even ecological stability of the planet. This generation has never felt secure personally, physically, financially, Della Volpe told me. Here's a chart showing how opinion among 18 and 29-year-olds has shifted on those issues. Those numbers, which come from the Harvard Youth Poll, released each spring, all suggest that today's young voters are substantially more progressive on these issues than young voters were even 5 to 10 years ago. Sizable majority now reject the idea that same-sex relationships are morally wrong, support stricter gun laws, and that's the funniest part, is that, like, they literally support stricter gun laws at 63% because, like, they are most at risk of being shot by a gun at school, or at least think that they are, even if statistically speaking, that's not obviously where it's happening all the time. And want government to provide basic necessities at 62%. Meanwhile, the support for government doing more to curb climate change soared to 57% in 2020 before subsiding at 50% this year. However, as far as I understand, Cenk was partially correct. Chatter. Of course, Cenk is correct. Young people vote more progressively, one, because they are born into an environment where such things are legislated, so it's the norm. But more importantly, young voters are more progressive because, and this study, which I love anything that is like sociology related, because it's basically just Marxism without telling you it's Marxism. I mean, it still has socio in it. It's too close to socialism for my comfort, but like all matter of sociological development and all matter of sociological studies are just basically Marxist principles without like the heavy-handed theory terminology. So it's my favorite thing to look at. The study already tells you why that is the case. What do you think economic uncertainty and feeling like they do not have future prospects is? As a sociology student, it's true. Yeah, that's how you know, for the record, that's how you know that that dialectical materialism is factually accurate and descriptive, and the correct the correct way to analyze these things, because the reality is that, and that's how you understand capitalist dogma is so pervasive. They need those tools for proper analysis, but they can't fucking associate those tools with Marxism, so they have to find a different thing. That's why I sometimes use socioeconomic conditions and material conditions interchangeably. Anyway, but yes, Marx is seen, at least by honest people, as the founder of sociology and sociological studies. Yeah, here, see? The great Boris repeated what I was saying just now. My favorite part of the field is making this extreme roundabout way to say socioeconomic status, aka material conditions, are the primary influence of every other downstream metric. That is Marxist theory. Don't tell the conservatives, though. It's good that they rebranded it. Well, it's bad that they rebranded it because, you know, I would rather have people learn about it honestly, but it's kind of good that they rebranded it so that conservatives don't fucking try to, destroy those departments, except they can't. And here is why. Much like you need open source software, much like you need public funded research, capitalists rely on the tools of sociological experimentation and analysis in an effort to make better ways or better mechanisms of control. So they still need that analysis. They just want to weaponize it to their own needs. It's like ExxonMobil knowing full well that climate change is happening, anthropogenic climate change is real, all the way back in like 1985 through internal studies and reports, and then immediately spending all of their money to fucking stop you from learning about it for the next couple of decades. The problem is, as far as I understand, 18 to 29, yes, is solidly on the Brandon train. However, there's not that many of them that are interested in voting in general. So out of the ones that are voters, they're on the Brandon train. However, when you move one generation above, when you get to the 45 and under vote, all of a sudden things take a dire turn. A very, very dire turn. And that is, voters under the age of 45 were also critical of Biden's 2020 win. He led Trump by 17 points with this group in the last election, according to AP Votecast data. But in the latest PBS NewsHour NPR Marist poll, Trump now leads Biden with 50% of young voters compared to 47% for Biden, a 3-point difference that is within the poll's margin of error. 45 and under is young for voting purposes. Yes, it is. Ladies and gentlemen, we are definitely in a very scary area. Okay? We're in a very, very scary place. I hope you understand that. The Republican Party, and I've been an alarmist about this for some time now, and there are a lot of much smarter Democrat lovers in the chat that always tell me I'm wrong. I don't know where one of them is. Idesh Dare is one of the names that I can remember immediately off the top of my mind in the chat. They say I'm wrong and that there isn't any sort of shift happening with Latino voters, or that there isn't any sort of serious shift happening with black voters. Okay? But I do think that there is one, and Joe Brandon, for the most part, is being carried by white voters in general. Yeah, I don't know what happened to Lipsteiny. Lipsteiny only cares about foreign policy stuff. Now, of course, there's a way to fix this. Very simple way. It's called debt forgiveness. Student loan debt forgiveness, specifically. It's Latino voters much more than black voters? Yes, obviously. Didn't 55% of white women vote for Trump? I believe the number was 52, and that was in 2016 against Hillary Clinton. I don't know what those numbers look like this time around, but those numbers will be very different. But how is it happening? I doubt that Latinos are worried about immigration getting out of control. What is the GOP's messaging that is attracting Latinos? So for that, I rely on the Texas GOP and their messaging strategy. That is what guides my analysis in the situation, because Texas has a lot of the different kinds of Latino voters, because I'm not talking about Florida for obvious reasons. Florida Latino Hispanic populations have always been relatively reactionary and right wing, specifically Cubans. They've also come here under different political circumstances as well. Part of the reason is the incorporation of Latinos as white, and the other part of it is that Latino voters in general have a major generational divide a lot of times it's a much younger voter block as well, depending on what area you're looking at. And of course, if they're young, they're going to vote for a progressive candidate. However, the issue is Latino voters across the board are a very interesting sort of voters. They're a very interesting group of voters, very different than any other demographic. Now, obviously, it's a very diverse demographic, so like capturing the essence is very difficult. However, there is one issue that they are almost a monolith on across every age demographic, with the exception of Cubans and Venezuelans. And that is, they like social safety nets. They want social safety nets. So, if the Democrats were to push for more social safety nets, they would be able to captivate a much higher base of support from Latino voters. However, on the other side, they're also very Catholic or very Pentecostal, but genuinely very Catholic and very religious, especially older Latino voters. So the Republican Party has relied in states like Texas, for example, where you have an older Latino population that has been in America for longer than half of the fucking white people have been here, because, you know, Texas is Mexico, North Mexico. Those guys are, one, already white and have been considered white by both the census data and also feel that way in some ways as well. So they do not have the same considerations that younger first generation Latino voters would have. Bro, stop saying not really, please. We had this conversation before, okay? We had this conversation before. I'm using reductive ways of describing something, but it's very difficult for me to get my point across if you immediately fucking say, no, you're wrong. I'm not talking about you. If you're in here, you're not even the Latino voter I'm talking about. You are literally on the other side of the equation. You're in here. So clearly, you're not a fucking Republican, Catholic, 80-year-old Mexican American who's been in the fucking country for like 8 generations, okay? That's not you, dog. Chill out. Why do older members of my family love Reagan? Amnesty. That's a big part of it. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's keep going. But that is a part of it. Some members of your family might have even gotten amnesty due to Reagan. That's unimaginable. You know what I mean? You're not gonna fucking. You're never gonna forget that. Huh. So, as I was saying, older Latino voters, one, oftentimes see themselves as white, and they are a part of the white in-group, as a part of the census data at the very least, and also are very religious. But on the other side, they want socially progressive policies when it comes to economic policies, okay? So if the Democrats are not offering them that at all, and the Republicans are hyping up the abortion side and like social conservatism side, then at least one side is offering them something to vote for, whereas the other side is not offering them anything to vote for, especially because, and this is the part where the whiteness is important to consider, they do not have a positive feeling towards undocumented immigrants. This is something that many Americans, specifically white Americans, don't understand. They're like, what do you mean? But they're Latino. And the people that are coming in over the border, they're Latino too. No, dog, they don't give a fuck, okay? They're white. They're American. This is why the 70% metric is important. 70% of Latinos identify as white. That's why 66% of the country is still white. Why are they white? Because white Hispanics and Latinos are a part of that white in-group now. They might not always be considered white in an individual basis, but it doesn't matter. I've talked to a few first-generation immigrant Latinos in the D.C. area who despise new immigrants. That is actually shocking. Most first-generation Latinos do not. That is not what the data looks like, for the record. I just want to point that out. If you are Latino and you're in here, one, you do not find yourself in the 70% group that considers himself to be white, unless you're white Hispanic, but even then you probably might have a certain hang-up on that front as well, okay? And that's understandable. If you're even a second-generation Latino voter, you still are still very much American, but you hold on to aspects of your culture. But beyond that, being young and Latino in America is very different than being old and Latino in America. Okay? But by the third generation, all data shows full assimilation has occurred. It doesn't matter if you're Latino. It doesn't matter if you're Asian. It doesn't matter if you're Irish. That's it. By the third generation, every single demographic in the United States of America is American. Okay? This data is across the board too. You get fatter. You get worse test scores. You literally are just full-blown American. Your voting pattern changes as well. Except for with speaking native language. No, assimilation across the board by the third generation. My dad literally fought fascism and still has weird takes due to U.S. culture wars. Yeah, I mean, are you first, second, or third generation fat? I'm I'm multiple generations fat, but I'm fat in Turkey. That's different. That's a whole different beast, brother. Yeah, I'm second generation, and if I were to have kids, I have a huge fear of them completely losing touch with my Chinese side. Yeah. That's why there's a shift in the Latino voter patterns. Partially the consequence of voters getting older, like first-generation immigrants, some who might even have undocumented parents who are getting older and have access to more material wealth. If they do, they start voting in predictable ways. That is the best indicator still to this day. Anyway, having said that, though, this is fucking terrifying. I just want to point that one more time. Biden is a slight lead over Trump, his predecessor and current frontrunner for the Republican nomination, with 49% of registered voters saying they choose the incumbent and 47% siding with Trump, according to the latest poll. However, in this fucking poll, both candidates have a commanding lead with their respective partisan voters. 51% of voters in this poll have a negative impression of Biden, and 56% dislike Trump. Trump's negatives are higher, but Trump's support in the base is also higher than Biden's support in the base. I don't buy theory, older mean conservative, but I agree with materially something has changed. Yeah, no, I'm never going to tell you that like there are generational divides or anything like that. The factors are simply what level of proximity do you have to like legitimate assets and asset ownership, and how you are generating income. Voters who dislike both Trump and Biden, the double haters, Republican strategist with Ayers says, become a swing voter group that both parties will spend significant time and money trying to win over. These voters are more likely to back Trump by a 2-to-1 margin in the latest poll. 54% say they'd back Trump if the election were held today, while 27% say they'd choose Biden, and 19% remain undecided. That is in line with how voters behaved at the polls in 2020. Exit polling shows that 3% of voters said they were dissatisfied with both candidates, and of those, 52% voted for Trump and 35% for Biden. In 2016, that share was 18%, with 47% going for Trump and 30% going for Clinton. When given the option of choosing a generic candidate who is not Trump or Biden, 70% of all voters and more than a third of independents say they would support a third-party nominee. 65% of voters do not want Biden to be president again, while 60% say the same of Trump. That is fucking insane. The length at which you have been exposed to cultural propaganda and at which end of that propaganda you find yourself on. From the perspective of most regular voters, the primary battle has just begun. But when it comes to those who say they're very satisfied with the candidate as the nominee, Trump has a 13-point advantage among voters in his party and independents who lean that way, revealing a potential enthusiasm gap between the Democratic and Republican voters that concerns Democratic strategist Faiz Shakir, who served as a campaign manager for Bernie Sanders in the 2020 presidential campaign. This is what I was talking about. There is a major enthusiasm gap, and that those who love Trump really love Trump. Those who want to vote for Trump really want to vote for Trump, whereas those who like Biden or would rather vote for Biden over Trump aren't necessarily as enthusiastic to vote for Biden. That is a problem, especially in a country like the United States of America, where there's no compulsory voting, and voting is actually difficult by design. If voting is difficult by design and you have less enthusiasm and you hate the other side, but you kind of hate your own candidate as well, you are going to be reluctant to go out and fucking vote because you're not going to take time off or you're out of your day. You're not going to wait in the line. That plays a big role when you look at it from the entire country. Don't a lot of people hate Trump though as well? Yes. More people hate Trump than they hate Biden, as far as I understand it, even though this poll says there are more people that don't want Biden to be president than Donald Trump. However, on the favorability side, look, here. 56% have an unfavorable impression of Donald Trump. 51% have an unfavorable impression of Joe Biden. Okay? That is one of the few things that is going for Brandon. Okay? And that's huge. It's not like an insignificant thing. However, negative campaigning does have a tendency to depress voter turnout. And in normal circumstances, at least nowadays, that should be beneficial for the Democratic Party. However, because Trump has more popular support in his own base than Brandon does, that is leading to a major issue for the Democrats. Meanwhile, Trump has, by the way, remember I told you whites are carrying Brandon. Trump has the support of 49% of white voters, 6 points less than he did in the 2020 election. That's also huge. The whites are carrying Joe Brandon. I keep seeing threads defending Biden with an attempt to hand wave his age. What? And Democrats are like, guys, it's the lesser evil. Like, we get it, man. Anyway, voters under the age of 45 were also critical of Biden's 2020 win. He led Trump by 17 points, and now they're close with a 3-point difference that is better for Trump. Think about that, under the age of 45. That is fucking nuts. Whew. Things are looking not great, man. But on that note, let's get back to Jimothy Jordan for House Speaker.
The moderates end up stepping back. If you want to know how Republicans writ large, for the most part, besides kind of the really diehard Trump folks, felt about all of the talk about Trump and Speaker, I want to play something from Garrett Graves, who's a top ally, former ally of Speaker Kevin McCarthy, last night with our colleague Caitlin Collins. Listen.
He's claiming tonight that he could actually take the job as House Speaker on a short-term basis. Do you believe that that can happen?
Look, there's a part of me that just sitting down and buying tickets to watch the chaos would be incredibly entertaining to see what the Democrats just created. But in a, I guess, more serious fashion, look, my focus is on restoring functionality and stability. My guess is, just based upon precedent, that the next Speaker of the House is going to be a member of the House of Representatives.
So for context, shortly thereafter, Trump endorsed, and the idea, which was never actually real, of him becoming Speaker went away. But I want to figure out a way to bottle and sell that sigh from Garrett Graves, because I think that encapsulates what a lot of members feel but maybe don't want to say.
I love the deep sigh, the deep groan, but also, did you catch the little dig at Democrats, right? Democrats caused this, a very convenient overlooking of the fact that this all came from, the House Freedom Caucus and Matt Gaetz. I think what's interesting about this is that, we move on so quickly to who is about to fill this seat, but the majority of Republicans supported Kevin McCarthy, right? So this is really about a small minority having outsized power because they were able to manipulate the rules. I feel that there are certain moderates who don't want to be associated with Trump, and Jim Jordan's close relationship with Trump, him, leading the charge against the Joe Biden impeachment, all of these things make him a divisive figure.
What?
And so whether or not he should be...
Bro, that's crazy. I don't think, okay, listen. I don't think Republicans give a fuck that, like, the Brandon impeachment is happening. If anything, they like it. If they know about it, they like it. That is not divisive to Republicans. No. Who are the moderates? Like, this is a fantasy. This is a fantasy. There's, like, maximum 15 plus... there's maximum 15 plus Republicans in the House that are like actually in purple districts and maybe a little bit more careful, but they still have to literally stoke the fires of Trump because they recognize that this is the Trump show and this is the Trump party. This is why I don't like the fucking the MAGA Republican distinction. It's like, no, man. These guys are all fucking animals, okay? They're all demons. There is no distinction there. There is no reasonable Republican out there that's like, oh, I really don't like this. I want to get back to work. Unless you're talking about, like, you know, moderates out in the fucking wild that would potentially vote for the Republican Party. I don't know what you're talking about.
The one to actually to govern and not sort of take that speaker seat and make it more of a circus, that is yet to be determined.
You know, he's out there saying, look, I'm the one who can bring everybody together. I can unite everyone, Casey. But it does beg this question of who else could break through, right? Who could you get, Casey, to break through that could actually move things to that lane of, hey, let's do some governing here. Let's not just let a small group of very, very vocal folks run everything.
Look, I'll just say,
bro, this always goes back to the same problem for the Republicans, okay? It's not just Trump. Trump just happened to be the guy who read the room better than anybody else, which is why he was popular, okay? Without that 30% of freaks that you have literally put in your bosom and have, like, grown, okay, that you've taken care of, you're not winning any elections. Okay? But that 30% that you have to cater to because they're so used to you catering to them is literally insane and is causing you to not get any of the fucking other guys who are like, oh, well, I kind of like tax cuts, but like, what the fuck's happening here? You keep telling me about like children's penises that are being chopped off or whatever. I don't want to think about that. That's nuts. You did that to yourself.
I think there is zero evidence to support the idea that House Republicans are not willing to go along with whatever Donald Trump wants. It's just, there's no evidence. We've seen over and over and over again, and we've talked so many times over, you know, obviously Biden's been president for a couple of years now, but this conversation has somehow continued about, well, aren't Republicans going to break with Trump? You know, he's been indicted again. Aren't they going to break with Trump? And the answer is continually always no. And these House Republicans, you know, the majority of them answer to districts, to constituents in districts who are the ones that are sticking with Donald Trump in these polls. And I just think that that's the reality that you're going to see manifested here. And I think in terms of the speaker's race and your specific question, Erica, I just don't see, someone has to get to 218 votes. And with Trump endorsing Jim Jordan, it's going to be a lot harder to convince people not to back Jim Jordan over the objections of Donald Trump, especially because the votes in conference, right, are private. First, they have to go inside themselves. They take their own vote behind closed doors, but it's a secret ballot, and that'll pick, you know, who the conference officially wants. Then this vote has to be public on the floor. So anybody that votes against Jim Jordan is now officially crossing Donald Trump, which we know that most of these members are just terrified of doing.
It's a great point, and almost certainly the reality, with the usual caveat that, hey, there are enough members to do something different if they want to. They have not proven willing to do that for the better part of the last 7 years. Last question before we go. Taking a step back, the House being paralyzed like this, the Republican conference being where it is, a government funding deadline hanging in the balance, Ukraine aid hanging in the balance. What do you think this says about kind of the direction of things in politics right now?
I mean, I think that as the American people watch this, there's this sense of being overwhelmed by the paralysis, right? And it gets to a point where you wonder whether you can just sort of blame one party. I think there's this sense of apathy because people feel like you tell us to go out to the polls, you tell us to show up in numbers, and then you tell us, about what you can't get done, whether you're talking about the executive branch or you're talking about the legislative branch. And so as we look at election 2024, I hope that politicians from both sides take nothing for granted, because there are a lot of people who feel like just staying home at this point as they look at the chaos that's playing out on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, I think you see that in the polling, regardless of who they support, that there's just like a general malaise right now. Natasha, Casey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it, as always.
Thanks, guys.
Casey's district loves him, by the way.
Fox News alert, new overnight, former President Donald Trump threw his support behind Congressman Jim Jordan as House Speaker ahead of next week's Speaker vote. Trump saying in part, quote, Jordan will be a great Speaker of the House and has my complete and total endorsement. His congressional colleague, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, would also for the speakership, and he joins us right now from his office on Capitol Hill. Steve, good morning to you.
Morning, Steve. Good to be with you.
It's good to have you as well. Did Donald Trump call you and say, hey, sorry about it this time, I'm going with JJ?
Yeah, we spoke, obviously. You know, a lot of friendships in this race, a lot of folks that, you know, have been talking to other folks on the outside to bring in to this race. There's a lot of interest in this race, you know, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of one-on-one conversations over the last few days I've been having with my colleagues, and a lot of introspection about how we get things back on track. The problems that we have internally, they don't go away with a new speaker, but the real question the members have is how do we get things back on track? And the reason I've been able to build such a strong base of support over these last few days that's been growing is that I've got a long proven record as somebody who knows how to unify Republicans to fight on the battles that matter for the families who gave us this majority. They want us to be fighting over border security, getting spending over control that's driving inflation. The things that we came here to do are what we've got to get back on track doing. And that's the conversations we've been having these last few days, and we're going to continue having. And we got to get this resolved soon. That's going to get resolved Wednesday in our conference. But then we got to go back fighting for those families who are struggling, because that's what the real fight's about.
Right. Well,
yeah, by cutting their fucking their benefits. You know, like, get the fuck out of here. I love Republicans to be like, yeah, we gotta fight for these families, you know, these working families that we care about. By doing what exactly? Yeah, making it harder for them to like eat food. Making it harder for them to pay for the top of the hour ad break avoidance fee, which is $5 a month in the form of a subscription, or a free one in the form of a Twitch Prime. Because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. Republicans want you to sit there and watch those fucking ads, okay? They don't want you to subscribe. Here's a 3-minute ad break now.
You talk about getting the car back on the rails. On a scale of 1 to 10, how screwed up are things right now? I mean, it's from what I've seen, it appears to be total civil war.
You know, there's a lot. You know, there was anger, there was a lot of frustration, there still is, and we've got to work through that. You know, but Steve, we started this year knowing with a small majority, everything we do was going to be a challenge. And Speaker McCarthy came in, laid out some.
Or Twitch Turbo, which you never mentioned. Yeah, why would I mention Twitch Turbo, dumbass? Who the fuck is on Twitch to be like, I want to give money directly to Amazon? Some motherfuckers in the chat are literally doing advertisement directly for Amazon. Someone said it's actually cheaper. It saves you money. I don't know how many fucking people you subscribe to and watch that it would save you money. Okay? A Prime sub is at the very least an Amazon backed compensation thing. Amazon Primary membership is $139 a month. You used to talk about Turbo? No, I never talked about Turbo. Don't try to. Oh God, I know what's going on right now. I'm getting baited. Twitch Turbo pays the streamer as if they watch the ads. Yeah, but not directly in the same way that fucking subscriptions do. So, yeah, no. I don't give a fuck. I don't know how much Amazon Prime is, but everybody has it. There was another ad break avoidance thing that I used to mention, way more than anything else. And unfortunately, I can't mention 2 of the ways to avoid the ad breaks because I was told that it's not allowed anymore. But I've rarely ever talked about Turbo. All right, let's continue.
Real rules changes that have been working, you know, but we've got to get back together, work through some of these problems that are going to still be there. I've got relationships with everybody in our conference, have worked through it in a lot of different roles, and have built coalitions to do big things, small things. We passed an energy bill.
Socialist grifter begging for sub dollars. You got it. Your subscription, for those of you who don't know, who is new here, come out to 2.4 cents. 2.4 cents an hour. It used to be 2 cents an hour because I used to stream more, but now it comes down to 2.4 cents an hour that you're paying. You don't have to do it either, by the way. You don't have to do it at all. But if you would like to pay 2.4 cents an hour, you are more than welcome to do so. It's shrinkflation, baby.
I don't want to focus on the internal fights. Look at the big things we have done that we've got to keep fighting for. We passed a major energy security bill. We passed a major border security bill, a Parents' Bill of Rights, sitting in the Senate doing nothing because the Senate doesn't want to address this.
Bill of Rights.
Day one, Speaker Steve Scalise will see challenge President Biden to sit down.
I love when Republicans correctly point out that American families are suffering, okay, because they are, under dire economic circumstances, which is the truth, and then go, and how do we save them? With a Parents' Bill of Rights, which of course is just some like transphobic bullshit. There are no single issue voters that care about that. You are fucking so stupid. Okay? You're so dumb. You're a fucking idiot. I will never believe that this is a single issue voter thing. No matter how hard or how stupidly Republicans carry the torch for this, which is odd because it failed in the midterms. Even the fucking crime panic narrative failed in the midterms. The crime panic narrative only worked in like deep blue areas where the actual people leaned into the crime panic narrative. $38,400 a day. You think I make $38,400 a day? Are you out of your fucking mind, dog? What? That's insane. You probably make more. No, I don't make more. What the fuck? Dude, it's my sub number is public.
And start talking about the crisis at the border that everybody in America knows is a major.
It's way more. I make $1 million a day. That's right.
Problem that he doesn't want to solve, or the Senate doesn't want to solve. But you know what? Democrat mayors are now talking about this problem. We need to go and start fixing it, not just talk about it. We've passed bills through the House the Senate doesn't want to confront. We've passed bills to address government funding over 70%, and we've got to keep doing that work in the House. But you know what? The Senate needs to do their work too. And as much as everybody wants to talk about the House, it's time they talk about what the Senate and the president are not doing, because those problems need to be addressed by all of us. And so we're going to come together as a House. They're scared to death, by the way, of us coming to the House under my guidance as Speaker to go and get in this fight again. Because once we're back in this fight, the country is already there. They're ready to solve these problems. They're the ones struggling every day that we need to go back fighting for. But the president's got to be in this fight too. And so does the Senate. And that's where we need to go and start.
38,000 a day.
I have heard from some members of Congress who've gotten a phone call from you that you are talking about unity, bringing it all back together, but also about fundraising, because in the House, nobody has raised more money for other members other than Kevin McCarthy than you. And I was looking at, I think it was Punch Bowl News this morning. In the last 10 years, you have raised $170 million for Republicans. And I think Jim Jordan, if I read it right, has raised just south of $40 million. So you are, of the men standing right now, you are the leader. So if people want a fundraiser, you're the guy.
Look, there's a lot of things you have to do as Speaker to number one, hold a majority, but to continue to go win more seats. I mean, we need to go be battling all across this country. We've got members in really tough districts that even Joe Biden won that we need to hold, but then grow in districts that we didn't win last year that we can win next year. And it takes a lot of money to do that too, but it also takes a strong message. It takes the ability to go out and fight and let people know what the fight's about, that we're fighting for those families who are struggling, who sent us here to battle for them. We've got to get our internal House back in order, and we're going to do that. We're going to do that Wednesday.
Right.
But then we've got to go back and let people know the fight in the Senate and in the White House, they don't want to engage in this fight, and we're going to force them to. We have to get that border under control, to get spending under control, to lower costs for families. Those problems don't go away. And we're going to be in that fight, and I'm going to lead that fight as the next speaker.
Steve, speaking of fights, I know that you are having a personal fight. You were diagnosed with multiple myeloma a while back. You're going through treatment right now. I've heard some people say, maybe he's not healthy enough. We had a conversation during the commercial preceding this. It sounds like your treatment is going well.
Yeah, thank God they caught it early. I have a great team of doctors, the best in the world, and they were able to put me on some drugs really quickly. I mean, it's a blood cancer. There's other forms of cancer too, but there were really good treatments available, and we got on quickly, aggressively.
Right.
And then my doctors weeks ago looked and said, it's going phenomenally well. You're ready to go back to work and get in the fight. If the doctors didn't sign off, I wouldn't be doing this.
So they've cleared you. They've cleared you. They said you're okay.
With me. They said, you're ready to go back in the fight. Look, I've been through tougher fights. You saw me when I was in the hospital.
I did.
Almost didn't make it through in 2017 after the shooting. And by the way, President Trump was right there, lifting my family up at the lowest times. People don't even see that side of him, how wonderful he was at my lowest moments in 2017. They didn't know.
Yeah, except now he fucking is not on your side. So stop trying to fucking curry favor and make it feel like to the Trump supporters watching right now that Trump actually has your back when he literally shanked you, dude. I thought his situation was way more dire. This motherfucker's wearing masks all the time. If I recall, he hasn't endorsed Trump yet. Jordan endorsed him in April. Yeah, well, Trump remembers. But also, the thing is, him holding his endorsement close to his chest is partially because he is more of a institutionalist than Jim is. Jim doesn't give a fuck. Jim's entire purpose in Congress from the jump has been to just fuck shit up. He's a Tea Party guy. He's one of the founding members of the Freedom Caucus. You know what I mean? He's been doing this shit for a minute and a half. Whereas Steve Scalise comes from like a different, like, I want to rise through the ranks of the Republican Party kind of guy. So he represents that change, that attitude shift. You said normal racist? Yeah, he's a normal racist. I mean, he's very racist. But he represents he represents a guy who like put in the work in more serious ways, like, oh, the adults in the room. Whereas Jim Jordan is more so like a fucking asshole. If I was Steve Scalise, I'd be real pissed right now, is what I'm saying.
If I would make it through those days. I did. I'm a fighter. Look, I've been proven through a lot of battles. God's given me a lot of strength. I've asked God for a lot. He's delivered. But there's families that are struggling every single day. We're going to lose 150 more young people today from opioids because of the open southern border. The president doesn't want to confront that challenge. We as House Republicans do.
I hate this so much. If you truly cared about the opiate crisis, which you very clearly don't, one, you'd push the prosecute the Sackler family further, which I never hear from these assholes. And two, you would be honest about where the fentanyl is coming from. Okay? These people are not serious. They're not. They're fucking seriously racist. And that's it. Opium, or opiates, fentanyl specifically, doesn't come from border crossings. It's not even me saying this too. It's like the Department of Homeland Security. It's not like these guys are fucking woke, okay? Unless you look at their numbers and realize that 52% of Customs and Border Patrol is actually comprised of Latino workers. But maybe that's why they're woke and lying about where the drugs are actually coming from, if you're that kind of racist. But the idea that drugs are coming through this open border is completely incorrect. They do not come through regular border crossings. they come from regular points of entry. They come from the ports if they're coming from China, or they come inside of vehicles owned by American citizens who do not get scrutinized in the same way that Mexicans do when crossing the fucking border. The metric ton of unit that you need to move through the border is impossible if you are relying on random abuelas to fucking sneak it in their bosom. Fuck! It's like thinking organized retail theft is responsible for $112 billion of merchandise being stolen. You have to be fucking insane. The number of people, think about it. Just think about how many drugs you would have to have on your person, okay, per person, with so much inventory getting lost in the process. What do you think is a much more effective way, according to the Department of Homeland Security, in moving a ton of product over the fucking American-Mexican border? It's insane to me that Republicans so openly and viciously lie about this. They lie about this so much that every fucking dumbass American literally thinks that some Guatemalan grandmother's ass crack is like the responsible party here for fucking trafficking fentanyl into the country. Are you out of your fucking mind? Like, what kind of imagination do we have that you literally think that's how this is happening? It's through the fucking ports in cargo containers, and it's through regular points of entry, okay? Through Americans trafficking the drugs inside of their vehicles that don't get scrutinized in the same way that, brown people do at the fucking border. It doesn't make sense. Like, it literally, when I think about these sorts of things, maybe even a little bit, I'm like, well, none of this makes sense. Like, you mean to tell me that tons and tons of product are going through the border in the most unreliable form of transit? Like, people who don't want to even fucking ship these drugs, they just want to come to America. You really think that that's how it's working? And they refuse to actually look at the data from the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security's own data shows 90% of drugs that are coming across the border are coming from regular points of entry and ports. Oh.
And we've passed bills to do it. The action needs to happen in the White House and the Senate. We need to continue fighting in the House to go and fight for the things that we've passed through the House.
Yeah. Oh, there's this too, yeah.